Welcome to Team Building Cultures, the podcast designed to deliver tools and tips for improving team communication, collaboration, and fostering a culture where teams thrive. Now, here's your host, Beverly Hathorn, owner of Strategic HR Consultants.
Hello, Team Building Cultures family. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Team Building Cultures. I am Beverly Hathorn, your host and owner of Strategic HR Consultants. Today, I'm very excited to speak with Mr. Roy Nassau. Roy is a leader who spent 44 years in the Marriott International environment. Meeting so many people led Roy to start his book, PAFU, and I'll let him tell you what PAFU stands for. I'm sure you'll be tickled to death. But he wrote his book about the strange and irritating things that people do on a regular basis that make you say, what the heck is wrong with you? So, Roy, I'm so excited to hear all about this book and all about any leadership tidbits and tools and tips that you have for us today. And thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Beverly. I appreciate being on your show. I feel like it's an honor because I love HR and I love team building and culture. So it seemed like a perfect fit. So I appreciate you taking time to speak with me today.
Sure, absolutely. So tell me your journey with Marriott International. I'm sure that you didn't start out at the top. Maybe you did, but I'm sure that this was a journey, that this was a process. So tell us a little bit about your journey with Marriott.
Well, it was a great journey and very exciting. And I can't thank Marriott enough for helping me grow in my personal life as well as my professional life. So I joined Marriott right out of college. When I graduated, I interviewed with 3 companies. All in the hotel food and beverage business, and I joined Marriott as a management trainee in 1976. They had a program called the Individual Development Training Program, ID Management, and I started as a trainee in the restaurants in the Marriott hotel system. And back in that time, Marriott only had 26 hotels when I joined the company. And here we are 47 years later, where Marriott now has 8,000 hotels. So I consider myself lucky and fortunate that I joined a company that had the vision and professional perspective of growing the company. So I started as a management trainee in the restaurants. It was a 3-month training program, and then I was placed as an assistant restaurant manager in one of the hotels. This one was in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and that's where I started my career in restaurants. And through my career, I gradually got promoted to other positions. From assistant restaurant manager, I was promoted to a restaurant manager in a hotel in Missouri, a resort, which was also a great experience. What's fascinating about all of this is that most of the hotels I started in may not exist today because they were either sold or torn down because it's been so long. But I worked my way through food and beverage, restaurant management, and then I became a director of food and beverage in a hotel in New Jersey. And then my biggest break came when I was promoted to assistant food and beverage director at the opening of the Orlando World Center Marriott. At the time, that was a 1,500 room hotel. And wow, that was exciting to open a hotel that size with that many employees. And at that hotel, again, I was fortunate that I was assistant food and beverage director, got promoted to food and beverage director. Then I crossed over and became a resident manager. And from there, I became a regional director of operations in the Southeast. And I did that job for 10 years before I finally got promoted to general manager at a hotel in Orlando, where I was a general manager for about 5 years And then I got promoted to the last position I had, which was a area vice president for franchise operations. And in that role, I was able to interact with owners, operators, presidents, and senior leaders at hundreds of hotels to hopefully help them on their journey to adhere to Marriott standards, both brand standards and operational standards. And that's the last position I had, was area vice president of franchise operations. And I was a pandemic retiree in 2020.
Wow, that is quite an interesting journey and a wonderful journey. I'm sure you had many, many opportunities to lead a lot of different people and establish many processes and projects. So tell us a little bit about your leadership tactics and, how you approach leading a team, because it seems like you've done it quite a bit.
Yes, well, again, through my career with Marriott, I had a lot of training, a lot of great mentors. And probably one of the things I learned the most and what benefited me throughout my leadership career was really listening to the employees. I found that was the most effective way to get results, was when people felt part of the process. They felt that their voice was being heard, and we engaged them in decisions that we were making, so that they felt that the hotel or the team that they were working on was moving in the right direction where they had some input. So I felt that listening and responding to people was really an effective leadership style.
I totally agree, Roy. When people, the culture, which is why I started this podcast, I totally understand that the culture that we foster and nurture for our employees is critical to get the innovation, the creativity, the extra push that employees get. It helps drive the knowledge and the skill. And when they feel a part of things and not just another cog in the wheel that's churning this big machine, when they feel a part of things, they take ownership. And we all know how owning a process or a system or an activity or material, we all know how important that is, because then that becomes something that you care for and take care of. And so, yeah, I agree. Listening to your employees and giving them a space to speak and letting them know that they are heard. So tell us a little bit about your book. I'll just say it's PAFU, and tell us a little bit about how you came to write that book. I'm really, I've heard this story, but I want to hear it again.
Well, PAFU is not only an acronym, but it's a word. It's PAFU. And that word and acronym came about, and the acronym stands for People Are Effed Up. So that's what the acronym stands for, but it really is much deeper than that, because it came about because we were having difficulty finding rational explanations for the way people behaved. Sometimes people are irrational or unreasonable and illogical, and that's sort of the short definition of PAFU. And as I said, listening and responding to employees was such a critical factor that I felt it was important to introduce PAFU into the language, so that we were able to have a conversation with people when their behavior became a little, as I said, unreasonable. Just to piggyback real quickly on your comments about culture, I use an analogy for company culture, which is that I was, again, so fortunate to work with Marriott, which has been on the top 100 employers list to work for Fortune since Fortune started that list. And one of the things I learned is that Marriott has an extraordinarily strong culture. I use the analogy of your heart. Culture an organization's culture is like your heart. Your heart pumps blood to all parts of your body, to every cell and every organ, to make sure that your body stays healthy. And an organization's culture is just like your heart, but it's pumping values and beliefs to all parts of the organization, every individual, every team, and the business. And you have to keep your heart healthy, or it gets sick and gets diseased, and it could cause death. Well, a culture is the same way. If you don't keep your culture healthy, then it could die, and the culture and the business could stop thriving. So the book is based on making sure that people have an opportunity to voice their concerns and give feedback to people when their behavior is disruptive to the company culture.
Absolutely. And I have an analogy because I'm what you would call a plant mom. So my analogy is that the culture is the soil in which all things grow. You've got to foster and nurture that culture. You've got to fertilize it and water it, and so that your plants grow, so that your people grow and your people thrive. And so I'm right along there with you with the heart analogy. Yes, the heart is the center of the body, and it pretty much determines everything. It determines how everything functions. It determines how everything is going to work. So that is really and it's so necessary to take care of the heart as it is necessary to take care of the culture. I'm 100% with you on that. And it's nice to know that Marriott, which is a brand that we all know, it's nice to know that Marriott fosters such a strong culture and always working towards doing the best thing for their employees. That is really nice to know. And that's probably one of the reasons why it works like it does, because Marriott is definitely one of my favorite places to stay. And I'm really interested to know that it's one of the top 100 and has always been. That's no surprise. I've never had a bad Marriott experience. And now I know one of the leaders that created that experience for me. So that's really great to know, and definitely information that I agree with. I really agree with that. So tell me about how you go about your employees that you feel or present irrational, unreasonable behavior. What are some of the things you do to manage that?
Well, the first and foremost is as leaders, we have a responsibility to create an environment of honesty and trust. Trust is really based on leaders being honest with their employees, and vice versa. Employees need to be honest with their leaders. So you have this mutual respect of having open and honest dialogue. And so when someone's behavior, and when I say someone, Beverly, I also refer to not only employees, but leaders can be PAFU too. And unless the employees feel that they're able to provide feedback to their bosses, I believe that the employees will feel completely disengaged and disconnected. So one of the ways, well, I created an acronym, again, an acronym. Marriott was big on acronyms, so I guess it's in my blood. But I created an acronym for giving feedback called Build a Bridge, where each letter of the word bridge is a component of giving feedback. But the most important aspect of giving someone feedback when their behavior is disruptive is you need to ask permission. You need to ask permission of someone if you can give them feedback. I found that when people blurt out emotionally how they feel or that someone's bothering them, it's not very well heard. People don't react well to emotional outbursts. So the first step and the most critical step is always to ask permission. I learned that from one of my bosses when I was a regional. my regional vice president, who I reported to, told me a tip that he gave, because it's the most effective when you need to talk to your boss. And he told me that whenever he needed to talk to his boss about something important, he would always say something to the effect of, I have something important that I need to discuss with you. When would be a good time? And I always felt that that was most effective, especially when you're talking to a boss who might have a busy schedule. They have to go to meetings. They have a lot on their plate. So being respectful to your boss is the same thing as being respectful to a coworker or a subordinate. You should always preface your discussion with asking permission to speak to them and give them some feedback about either their behavior or their performance.
Perfect. And that, that shows a mutual respect, as you said. And that also lets them know that it's important to me to speak to you about this. So then that person will find some time for the two of you to be able to communicate. And I can definitely see where that would work with a boss rather than just, saying, can I talk to you or something like that. And I don't know that a lot of employees are comfortable giving feedback to their leadership. So again, that speaks to the culture. That really speaks to the culture. So if there's a culture of psychological safety where employees feel that they can speak openly and bring their discussions and concerns and ideas and thoughts to the table, they will. And it can often benefit. And even if it's not a benefit, at least they're heard, and that benefits the relationship, that benefits the culture. So even if they bring an idea that you don't use, so that is great. So what's the next step in giving feedback?
Well, the next step is having a discussion, and the Build a Bridge acronym basically stands for: B is for be benevolent, R is for be relevant, I is for be informative, D is for be direct, G is for be genuine, and E is for be engaging. And while there's no sequence to those components, because you need all of them all the time, it sets up for a very healthy discussion when whoever is giving the feedback is kind and caring. They listen really well. And when I say be direct, I've always found that it's best to share the information without a lot of sugarcoating. I think sugarcoating will mess up the message. It sort of distorts the importance, as you said, of what you're trying to talk about. So being direct is critical to the process of giving someone feedback. Get to the point right away and don't sugarcoat, don't go off message, don't have conversations about the family and all that, because then your message or your feedback is lost. And so it's important to be direct. And then be genuine is important because you want to be yourself. We mentioned trust earlier, and trust is built on mutual respect and authenticity. When you are yourself, you're not trying to be somebody else, or you're not trying to mimic somebody, then people will know that you're speaking the truth and that you're sharing honest information. And then be engaging, the last part, is really about listening a little bit more, asking questions, and not being judgmental. Being judgmental is a PAFU behavior that we try to avoid, because when you're judgmental, you're sort of blocking any opportunity to be open and listening to the other person's point of view. So those are the quick components of Build a Bridge, and it takes practice. So it's important that people work at it and aren't afraid to try it and get feedback from the person they're even giving feedback to, of how did I do? Was I respectful? Do you understand what I'm talking about? Help me understand why you behave this way. And then you end up with a really healthy discussion and dialogue.
Oh, that sounds great. You know, so many of those aspects of that acronym I really enjoy and try to practice. Specifically, I like the part about be engaging, don't make it like, if feedback is not given in the right, from the right perspective or in the right mentality, then it won't do what feedback is meant to do. So I totally get where you say be engaging, make it a conversational opportunity as opposed to just, you didn't do this, and you're not doing. And then don't be judgmental. Talk to that person about the facts, not what you perceive them to be or what you perceive them to be doing. Talk to them about the facts, and have your documentation ready if you need to. Benevolence is something we don't see a lot of. And, so yeah, it would be definitely wonderful to bring that into the conversation. And you must be relevant. We need to be talking about what is important to the business, to our positions, to our project, not just, again, what you've seen or what you perceive me to be doing or perceive me to be. So those are great. And I'm going to document that bridge analogy and make sure that it shows up in our marketing material when we air this show. I really like that. So tell me a little bit about how your employees, how you go about helping your employees who are sometimes maybe not as open or not as available or forthcoming. Like, for instance, an employee has knowledge and skill, but they're not growing or they're not developing. How do you go about approaching that employee and encouraging some movement or activity for them?
Yeah, that's the part of leadership responsibilities that a lot of people get right and a lot of leaders don't understand and they get it wrong. So just like everything we've been talking about so far, if a leader has a strong relationship, well, I shouldn't say if, a leader needs to have a strong relationship with their team. And by being open and honest, it helps bring out the best in people. So to answer your question, I think a leader needs to be transparent and share with the employees their own challenges, where they had difficulties or they had to learn how to overcome some of their own inabilities and skills. To help an employee understand that they might need to change or improve or develop certain skills to grow. I will say that we tested a lot of these processes when I was the general manager of a Marriott hotel. And in the year that we implemented this bridge strategy where we were open and honest and talked to our employees, and we allow the employees to talk to us and give the leaders feedback. In that year, we were able to take our turnover rate from 27% down to 9%. So leaders need to understand that behaving as a leader, as we've been talking about, building trust, being open both ways, that it will impact the business results in a profound way. And I think that's where leaders may be reluctant to try things because we're all worried about producing results for the company, for our business, for whatever aspect of the company we work for. And we lose sight of the fact that it's the employees who deliver the results, not you as a leader. So you need to have this open, honest, transparent relationship with your employees as a leader in order for them to feel that they are able to contribute in a bigger, better way, and perhaps take a little bit of a risk in developing their own skills so that they grow as an individual as well.
Yeah, totally agree with you on that. If as a leader, when you've built a relationship with your team and your employees, you will see and be able to understand where they need the help. If you've built a authentic and open relationship, you'll be able to spot that because you're talking, you're meeting, you're engaging, you're authentic and open with them. One of the things that I used to like to do with my employees was just have what I call the drive-by. I may just drive up to your desk and be like, well, hey, how's everything going? Have you talked to blah, blah customer, or did you figure out that system or that process? Oh, good. Well, do you need my help with any of that? Can I help you with some of that? And just be a regular person, because after all these corporations are people, it's not a machine. It's run by people, and you've got to relate to the people. And like you said, it's not the leader that brings results. It's the team, it's the people. So you've got to generate a culture that allows all that growth and that development. So I think those are really wonderful aspects. And I'm so proud to have this conversation with Marriott, because I feel I'm talking to Marriott. I'm learning so much about Marriott and the leadership. So thank you for all of that, Roy. So do you have any offers or gifts or anything that you would like to bring to the listeners?
Yes, I'd be happy to share with your listeners. I have a short PDF of the build a bridge process, where each of the components are sort of highlighted with the aspect of asking permission first. And if they wanted to reach out to me through my website, which is simply roynassau.com, there's a way to connect with me. And if they send me an email, I would be happy to share with them the PDF document of how to build a bridge and build trust and honesty and candor into the work environment.
Exciting. I'm sure everyone could benefit from that. So thank you so much for offering that today. That's great. So are there any other methods that we could use to get in touch with you? How do our listeners reach you?
The two easiest ways are, one, through my website, and two, I am on LinkedIn under my name. And so if someone wanted to reach out to me through LinkedIn, they can direct message me, and I'm happy to connect. If they reference your show, Beverly, then I'll have a better sense of that they heard me on your podcast, and that I'm more than happy to connect with anyone and everyone to have ongoing discussions and dialogues, and try to be as helpful as I can to as many people as I can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Roy, in helping us understand that the culture is actually like the heart of the organization. That is so cool. I really like that analogy. And thank you very much for the build the bridge methodology that I'm sure we'll all be taking advantage of, and your offer to help us move along with that with your PDF. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you being here, and it's been a great chat.
Thank you, Beverly. I enjoyed it very much, and I wish you continued success. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that, Roy.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Team Building Cultures. We hope we have delivered helpful and enlightening information to help you create your dream team. Join us next time.